The final patch for the balancing project of 2024 is here. I've been covering these changes since they started, and this one will also do the same. And after that, I will share my opinions of all the changes we got throughout the last 2 months in one final video. So let's start off with the latest changes. The first one is once again the Orama Mountain, where they are adding density to the Minotaurs of +1. I did say that even though there was added density to this spawn twice, it felt like Minotaurs were ignored both times, and now they are addressing that. And at least now it will make sense to alternate between the Fury and do some pulls in the Minos for creatures to respawn, and that could be a good hunt for profit. With the Fury having good drop rates and mutants dropping their horns, which are quite valuable, then it's worth considering, at least for those that have done the quest for access. Next up is the Falcon Bastion, where the density for the underground area near Oberon is getting density increase. Reading this, I was scared that it would just make it riskier for the low levels running through Oberon, but after checking it out, it feels like the density was added to the west and southern parts of the floor. Additionally, both Falcons are getting about 5% experience increase, which is still at around 15% less than what they were introduced. And I don't find the original numbers a problem anymore, but in fact, even density wasn't the main issue. It's mainly the respawn rate is too slow and you needed to include pulls upstairs in order to feed a team. The added density might make the pulls longer and perhaps that's enough, but solos and duos were already able to hunt the spawn with no uses of respawn, just lackluster numbers in experience, and I don't know if this will be enough. We'll have to try team hunting to find out. Next up is Warzone 2, which again received a monster density update, and using the same wave of comparing previous recordings and counting the creatures I ran through, this time it was around 92 creatures to the 80 of before the changes, so around 50% increased density or about 50% to before any of the changes. Additionally, magma crawlers getting some XP and becoming less annoying. Next up is some tweaks to the Ferumbra's Ascension once again, starting with the Undead Seal, with a respawn rate improvement on the bottom floor and added density. They didn't specify if only the second floor got added density, so it felt like the first floor might have gotten some new creatures too, but the second floor for sure got some creatures added to it. But unfortunately, the map design of the cave is still the same and that didn't get addressed. So I expect the first floor to be better than this even after the changes, but I might try it out for science. Additionally, Blightwalkers no longer get you strong, so no Warren rings will be needed for this spawn. For the Fire Seal, they replace some random green bleaches you will find in the spawn with a Vexclaw. It's not that meaningful of a change, it's more of a correction because they didn't belong there, and with all the fire fields from the Hellfire fighters, they often will not be able to get to you. For Pumin Seal, a passage has been added to connect the second floor into a loop. I mentioned this before as I think that floor was the most important part of the spawn and should have been touched a bit during the rebalancing, but instead their approach with the teleports on the first 2 floors made that one better, and I don't see a reason to hunt this last floor, other than maybe high level paladins or mages, and I don't think neither of them would have needed the loop. Additionally, Hand of Core Face are getting weak to energy, which is a good addition since the other creatures in here are also weak to energy. Next up is the Netherworld, receiving monster density. This is the flimsy spawn in Porthope, part of the Feast of Souls, which I personally can't tell the difference, never hunted here properly as it is mostly a solo mage spawn. It seemed to have a few more creatures on the first floor and perhaps more density on the second floor, but without being here recently before the changes I can't really tell. Next up is the Formorgon Mines. This is easily one of the most forgotten and useless content out there, and I was hoping for a proper rework, because given the size of the mines, it does have the potential. I went straight up to the bottom floors to check out the density changes and it was very underwhelming. It mostly feels like they just added nightmares and 1 extra creature per pool, but with the design of the spawn is bad for hunting, and on top of that is hidden behind a long quest line, so it will continue to be ignored for years to come. Next up, we had yet again an attempt of making creep warriors viable. I don't think the previous changes did much and this one falls in the same line. Even though a 10% experience increase sounds good, given their difficulty, you need some mid-high levels to hunt there, and at that range is not worth it. So honestly, not much has changed. Next up is the Monster Graveyard, where the big spikes of damage is getting reduced. This spawn did have some high combos that will get worse when taking into consideration the hazard levels people will hunt them with, and then the crits will become pretty high in return. Additionally, the reduction of damage on the EK in melee is great too. Unfortunately, most people stop hunting there because of the low XP compared to alternatives in the level range, and that has not been addressed, so it might not change much. Additionally, Sulfur Spotters getting somewhat weak to fire puts them in the range of the other two creatures here, and at least sorcerers won't feel bad about waiving them now. And the last change we received was on the Gloom Pillars of Rotten Blood, which I have no comments about, since I have yet to try that area myself, but from what I have seen, this is the only area that remains unhuntable by everyone, so it clearly needed some changes, and this doesn't seem like will be enough, but again, I don't have experience here, so I could be wrong. With this, the balancing project of 2024 has come to an end, with a graph showing the effects implemented so far, but to be completely honest, most of these can be ignored, because we are not getting actual numbers. So a spawn that was getting 100 kills before to getting 200 now, representing a 100% improvement, doesn't say anything, as most of it can be attributed to people trying the spawns post changes out of curiosity. The only two that are clearly better will be the Yalahar Cemetery and Upper Rashomon, but I will be leaving my final thoughts on all the changes for one last video for this series covering the balancing project. Thank you for watching, and a special thanks to the Guild Causality, to Nightstar and to Nahiro for supporting the channel.